Tack, Jakob. Right, so I really want everyone to pay some extra attention on this next speaker. She's definitely not anyone that should be missed. This next speaker is probably the one that has the most insights into the highly important works of IAB Tech Lab in this room. Without further ado, welcome to the stage, Jill Wittkopp, VP Product, IAB Tech Lab.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really happy to be here in Stockholm with you all. And I'm going to talk today about a decade of setting high standards in digital advertising. IAB Tech Lab, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary this year. And so that has made us just a little bit reflective to look back on the history of digital advertising. So we'll talk today about a decade of digital advertising and what we've been through, who IAB Tech Lab is, how we're different from your local IAB and our hosts today, and a little bit about our work and how it applies in the programmatic ecosystem. So I like to start with this since we're being reflective. It's been 30 years since sort of the first digital ad, the first banner ad. Have you ever clicked your mouse right here? You will soon. And we all know that people did click. And what we started out with from a technology perspective, I'll never say it was simple, but it was less complex than I think the world that we're used to today. When we look at Lumascapes or just the volume of participants that bring value to a single programmatic transaction. And that's not just the DSP, the SSP, the publisher, and the advertiser, but all of the other partners that they work with, the verification vendors, the data providers, the identity vendors. The list goes on and on. I need not share that list with everyone here. But the importance is that because the ecosystem is so complex and there are so many participants, that standards are critical for sustained growth. Without standards, growth is challenging. It can be very expensive. And this is an illustration that highlights what that looks like for growth without standards. So on the far side here, we have 3 members, and you sort of think about how the easiest connection here I can liken it to is an SSP and a DSP using something like OpenRTB, the protocol for requesting and responding to an available ad spot. And so when the industry started, those were proprietary standards that each SSP and DSP decided to use together. And when you look at that, 3 members participating in digital ads meant 3 different protocols. And then when you wanted to add 1 more member, so a 4th participant, you're growing exponentially in the number of connection points needed. And if each of those were proprietary, that meant that each one had to be maintained separately. There's just a lot of overhead associated with it. And so when something like OpenRTB was introduced, those 3 members connected using the same protocol. Everyone was speaking the same language, and adding new participants to that ecosystem was much easier. You may know IAB Tech Lab from some of our standards. OpenRTB is probably the one that's most in programmatic people's day-to-day lives. You can also think of us for VAST, ads.txt, the Open Measurement SDK, TCF in collaboration with IAB Europe. All of those are technical standards to support the digital advertising industry. And we as Tech Lab steward those with a community of members very similar to the way that IABs work. Ads.txt has been adopted by millions of publishers globally. I think most people in this room are probably familiar with the standard and its accompanying partner, sellers.json, to sort of make sure that there's an attestation both from publisher and seller of that partnership. The transparency and consent framework, it's widely used in Europe, obviously. The last stat we had was over 87% of web inventory in Europe has a TCF signal. And the Open Measurement SDK, which is SDK to support viewability signals, is used on over 3 billion devices, specifically supporting in-app viewability, mobile web, or web video, and CTV inventory. So we, just like IAB Sweden, are a member-driven organization. We work with over 1,000 companies and have over 23 working groups in which our members are proposing updates to these standards based on features that they need or things that, enhancements that they see in the market where they want new technologies to solve common problems. We work globally. We are board. We have a separate board than even the IAB US. We are a completely separate organization, and we are support IABs around the globe. And happy to be here in Sweden at the Programmatic event. The way that we work with the local IABs is very similar, probably, to how you think about sales and marketing, working with product engineering within your organizations. So, the local market IABs know the business requirements, the business needs, and they can share those for sort of collaboration and those technical solutions. And the pillars, we like to talk about our work streams in 5 pillars. So I'll build this all out. So those 5 pillars of innovation, the work streams in which most of our solutions or specifications are done: supply chain foundations, addressability in pets, privacy, measurement, and advanced TV. Each one is sort of tackling a different set of problems, but the common piece is that we're looking for areas where that we're not sacrificing innovation, that it's a common problem for all companies, and that the companies continuing to solve for it is actually sort of taking away from the time that they could be using to innovate. And that's kind of how I think about some of our best solutions. Like with OpenRTB, every company, every SSP wanted to connect to every DSP. We knew that that was a problem. That wasn't something proprietary in what was being passed back and forth. It was just the fact that they needed to all speak a same language in a single sort of specification. So supply chain foundations is where we house RTB, ads.txt, sellers JSON. All of those get multiple updates and new features and attributes added per year. Some recent innovations in those space, you can think of, I think OpenRTB 2.6 was referenced on stage earlier, and that really pushed us on CTV. So instead of when you think about a commercial break and having multiple ads within a slot or a pod, those were all being sent as separate requests in 2.5 and before. In 2.6, we introduced the concept technically of an ad pod. So one request could ask for ads to fill an entire, 1.5-minute spot or whatever that might be. And you could bring a lot more flexibility to the way that CTV ads are bought and sold. Privacy focuses on privacy compliance. The TCF was obviously a big piece of that. That's sort of rolled into our global privacy platform, just as every, all the jurisdictions around the globe have their own versions of privacy laws. And so the global privacy platform does the same thing that TCF did. The TCF string has its own section within the global privacy platform, but there are also sections for US state signals, for Canadian signals, for other jurisdictions. Within addressability in pets, that's where we are, think about that as post-cookie or ways to bring privacy-enhancing technologies in hand with addressability solutions to really see if we can find the best of both worlds. And then in advanced TV, we're really looking at the convergence of more traditional linear television and CTV or streaming, and what technology solutions can really underpin both of those. And so a little bit of what's come in 2024, some of the things that we've worked on this year. A project that I was very proud of. It's sort of very in the weeds, but it was a very simple solution. Many CTV ads don't have a standardized, unique creative identifier. It leads to many streaming platforms having to do a lot of work, unnecessary work for reconciliation. It leads to waste of creatives not being used where they think they're being used, just because it's very difficult to track and manage the frequency or the campaigns that are being executed. And so our Creative ID framework, it is really just a way to assign a unique identifier from a local creative registry to a piece of creative and traffic that with the inventory through VAST or other protocols. And making sure that that ID stays with the creative is critical to then easing a lot of the downstream problems. Measurement, cross-screen measurement, and reconciliation are just a few. Another piece of work that we did this year, we did a very exhaustive analysis of Google's privacy sandbox. We've since sort of pivoted that work stream to really look at all of the browser-based or more specifically like proprietary platforms that are providing ad tech solutions and really just provide insights from the advertising industry of what our feature requirements are. What are the basic sets of activities needed to be able to run a campaign, measure a campaign, and sort of optimize a campaign. And we've documented that list to make sure that that's available as new players sort of come into the market and work with them to understand what the industry is looking for from a technology perspective. Another big, over the last, I guess, 2 years, big initiative or release was looking at the difference, or new definitions of in-stream video. And this was released 2 years ago, I think, but it definitely is one of those things where it took time in all markets for folks to implement and make the changes. And it introduced a new type of a new placement type for video. And it's definitely been a shift in all markets that we've seen with a new definition of in-stream and then new features like accompanying content video making their way into each market. Another that was just this year, I think a new term for me, was ID bridging. And that was really looking at within the OpenRTB protocol, there are specific fields for cookie synced identifier, or for what DSPs generally feel should be a cookie synced identifier, but that wasn't necessarily crystal clear to everyone in the industry, and so other IDs were ending up in that field, which caused a lot of confusion in the market. And so the task force or the working group that focused on this really focused on two things. One was clarifying the use of the previous fields and that they should be used for cookie sync activities. And then making sure that there was a new transparent way for other identifiers to be declared appropriately within the bid stream. And so that's really understanding, it's called the extended identifiers object, and it shows not just which IDs are there, but who matched, who inserted them into the bid stream, like what the company is, and what the matched methodology type from a fixed list is with each identifier. Another one is we expanded the Open Measurement SDK. So for viewability, that's also on a cross-screen journey, starting in mobile, moving to web video, and this year we've definitely stepped fully into CTV. And again, more work in privacy compliance with a data deletion framework. So all of those, more information is available on our website. And just a teaser of things to come for 2025. We're certainly not slowing down. If this seems like a lot, it was just a sample of a lot of the work that we've done. And we have just as much planned for 2025. A big one that I want to bring people's attention to is about CTV Creative. We'll be hosting a standardization program for new sets of CTV creative that have been in market for a while, but maybe don't have technical standards. So we look forward to seeing submissions from all markets, and that news, I think, will be coming out just in a couple of weeks. We'll make sure to share. And if you guys have innovative CTV formats that you want to submit for standardization, we'd be happy to review. I think that's it. Thank you.